Hey everyone, this is Olay Shorunke from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. We're back at it. I hope you're done Christmas shopping. If you're a student, I hope you're getting your work done. For a lot of us, this is the last week before we gotta go for Christmas break. So you gotta get those grades in. If you got work online, I hope you're doing it. If not, them grades gonna be looking kind of, we don't want to say how they're gonna be looking, but they're gonna be looking some kind of way. So let's make sure we get those grades in. All right. Welcome to week 2. This is our second online mentoring with Laddering Your Success. My name is Olay. We have Festus here, and this is our second online mentoring session. Right. We're gonna be going over topics, discussing with you things that you're going through, anything that you have issues with. We discuss it. And we help you find solutions to whatever you're going through. All right. How you doing, Festus?
I'm good, man. I got the kids here with me today, so if you hear rustling in the background, then just know that it's me trying to be a father figure. So
that's life. Absolutely. So, Festus, I want to get right into it. We mentioned it last week, and so I want to get right into it. For a lot of students, especially students that are like leaving middle school and getting into high school and are in high school, even those who have already graduated, you have pressure. Sometimes it's pressure from family members. Sometimes it's pressure from your parents. Sometimes it's pressure from people around you to move you in a certain way, right? Last week we had or 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting for our boys club. And we did an awesome activity where all the boys had to write down what they wanted to be when they grew up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our boys, majority, probably over half, said they wanted to be some sort of athletic star, right? Or some sort of sports star, which is awesome. But as adults, as people who have seen it, people who have wisdom, we were quick to say, hey, we love it, it's great, but have a secondary goal, have something else you want to do, because the reality of it is, if you just look at it from a number standpoint, there's a finite number of spots, right? And there's only so many spots that you can have if you want to do it, and things like that. And injuries happen, right? We don't wish they happen, but these things are a reality. You're playing some sort of physical sport, you're pushing your body to a limit, these things happen. So I say all that to say, based off of everything that you've seen, how do students deal with parents or with pressure that pushes them to go in a certain direction with their career path or anything like that? And I mean that in the way of they're pushing them to go in a particular direction that they don't necessarily want to go, or they don't maybe necessarily like.
Yeah, this is definitely a hard topic, right? Because like you said, when it comes to an adult, we become very pragmatic. And sometimes that's really bad, right? We say, we grow up and life has just beat us down to a point where it's like, don't try anything that requires greatness. Say yes to whoever is screwing your life up, And so that becomes like a hard thing, especially when you match it against student's desire to do something that's very challenging like that. I think it's a mix, right? I think it's a mix, and the mix is what is the best fit, right? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, you can't, even if you did become an NFL athlete, you can't be in the NFL forever.
Right.
So the thing is, you're going to have to develop a skill set. You're going to have to develop a knowledge base, starting with who you are, being, your character, your values, and your principles that says, hey, I can do these things. So yes, I'm a great athlete, but the statistics indicate that most athletes, depending on what sport they play, are broke within 3 to 5 years, especially when you talk about things that Black and brown boys are interested in. So football, basketball, right? And so because statistically that's what that says, it doesn't mean that's what it's going to be for every person, because I know I'm kind of one of those people who kind of bucks up against statistics as well. But you also have to apply some wisdom, right? And so applying wisdom is simply what you do with what you know. And so that says, okay, well, look, if I have a skill set where I'm good at being a mechanic, or I'm good at being, fixing things or something like that, maybe I could look into carpentry and stuff like that. So I could do it in the summer. there's plenty of guys who are NFL athletes, college athletes, especially college athletes. Now we're gonna have to get into this, but that have a side job that they do during the summer or side business that they do during the summer, right? I know, I forgot which running back was running back for the Eagles. He had a restaurant, right? So literally he's busting tables in his restaurants before the game on Sundays, you know what I mean? Because he got to get it ready, and then he goes. He was a backup, but yeah, you know. And so that's kind of the way I look at it: is what's the right fit, and that's a discussion, right? That's every parent has to have this discussion with their kids, and there's 4 ways. If you look at I think it's called Bermudian parenting styles, right? You got 1 of 4 parents. You got the passive parent. They don't care what their kid does. They're not even talking to their kid about their future because it's like, whatever, right? You got the parent that's indulgent. Oh, yes, baby. Sure, you could play basketball. Sure. And you suck, right? And they're just telling you that because they're just telling you that. And it's unfortunate, but that's the parenting style where it's just like, you can do whatever you want, baby. And the truth is, you getting your head knocked around, you get all on the court. It's just reality, right? So then you got the parent who is more of an authoritative parent where they say, no, you're going to do X, Y, Z. Okay, if you want to do something else, you tell me why. You show me why. They're challenging you, but they're also trying to walk through it together with you. And then you have the last parent, the authoritarian parent. Most Nigerian parents, we're Nigerian, for people don't know, they fall into this category. You will be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Period. There's like no other alternatives, right? And so the thing is, as you're having that discussion, a parent needs to be aware of their parenting style, but also the student needs to be aware of kind of that discussion with their parents. So I hope that answered that question.
No, I think that was great. Absolutely. No, that was perfect. Let's take it back though. We're gonna take a trip back in time to, I don't know. We'll go back 2 places. We'll go back to, let's say, our maybe freshman, sophomore year of high school. And then we'll go to like right after we graduated. Okay. What could have been done differently? And I'm talking about like us, our because a lot of what we talk about with LYS, we kind of dealt with. What could we have done differently? Or what do you think we should have known? What are some things that we knew from our parents that maybe could have helped us so we didn't get, well, I don't know, well, not for you, but for me, I didn't get all the student loan debt. A lot of us didn't get the student loan debt, right? What things could we have learned? What things could our parents have done to kind of help us understand, the correct path that we should have gone?
Well, see, I think this is a tough subject here, because it really depends, right? It depends because one thing is where did your parents go to school? If you're a first generation student, right? And so that means your parents either didn't go to college or they didn't finish, or sometimes, like in our cases, our parents went to school. My dad studied in India and in Nigeria. And so before he came to the US, he already had he was on track to be a civil engineer. Well, in the 80s, there were some laws that basically prohibited foreigners from using their academics in the United States. That's changed quite a bit, though. And so there's a difference there. And so oftentimes we as students, we don't know that. We just think, oh man, my parents, they don't know, they just on my back. But we also don't realize like the bigger play that's happening, right? And the bigger societal play, sometimes we don't take that into consideration. So to your point, I think finding the right educational fit is what really matters, right? And that's going to save us a lot of money. And the right educational fit now is changing drastically, right? Because you have to think back when kind of our parents were in school, there wasn't even the internet, right? So now you got online classes, right? So that provides a lot of options for students now. Because a lot of online classes, excuse me, if you don't have to physically be there, then that means I can serial task. I could get my work done, and then I could go focus on something that makes me money, right? So there's a lot of different components to that. But let me kind of hop on like the things that we know. That's like, if you're trying to save money on the college going process or the education process, here's a couple nuggets that are golden, they're true, period, regardless of institution, whatever. The number one thing that increases student loan debt is people not filling out the FAFSA. So they're not having access to a certain amount of scholarships, right? Because what happens is, and I know this because I got about 87,000 worth of scholarships and grants, is that the schools utilize the FAFSA and the expected family contribution to determine the scholarship allotment, because schools have what's called endowments, and that is alumni money and investments that they made in the past that give them a certain amount of scholarships that they can offer to students. So for me, just one such scholarship was a president's scholarship, was a transfer scholarship that I got from going from community college to Ford University. It was $10,000. All I literally had to do was go to the university, and I was going to save $10,000 a year, right? And so when you're going to, I went to pretty fancy private school. I guess I don't know how fancy it was, but I went to a private school, right? Yeah. And the thing is, it was, when I got there, it was $36,000 a year tuition. Well, that cut off 1/3 of the tuition off top, right? And so these are some different types of things that we have to look at. The next thing we have to look at, besides filling out the FAFSA, right, is changing our major. Changing your major, because if you do it, especially if you do it in your junior year and whatnot, that ends up biting people in the bottom, because when you change your major, certain credits no longer count towards graduation. So this is what I would say: if you're undecided, just get what they call a multidisciplinary degree or a general studies degree. Why even look that way? Why does that matter? Why does that make sense? Because the thing is, when people graduate from college, 50% don't even work in the field that they got the degree in. So if you get a general studies degree, that means it covers pretty much all the basics. Sometimes they require a few more credit hours than a typical degree. And then there you go, you're good to go, right? Instead of studying underwater basket weaving, that's not going to necessarily lead to a career. So that's the second thing. So we got one is filling out the FAFSA. Two, changing your major. The third thing is actually changing colleges, changing universities, right? So again, some people, college is not for them, and I'm going to hop on that in a second, right? But changing places without graduating is actually what shoots people a lot in the foot. You'd be better off going to community college, finishing your 2 years, 3 years at community college, and then going to another location. But at least that's finishing out the way. Why? Because number one, it's going to give you access to more scholarships and resources. Number two, you've already gotten that out the way. Now, if something happens, for whatever reason, God forbid, you can't graduate, you have something to fall back on, rather than, you're not able to fall back on that. So let me hop on this kind of what if college isn't for me thing, right? There's certifications, right? And this is, this was in my mind back in the day, right? I didn't know that going to college didn't necessarily mean you had to get a degree. You could actually get certifications. And so it depends on what the field is, right? You could get certified in some kind of technical program. So you could be ASC certified mechanic. You could be a certified welder. You could be a certified, now they got on the construction sites where you put together the scaffolding. You can get certified for that. That pays $30 an hour, $20 to $30 an hour, just for putting together the scaffolding. So there's so many certifications that are out there that are options for students that can help save that money, so they can keep that money.
That's wonderful. Just a couple of notes that I had was shout out to HCC. Shout out to HCC. For me, I know that was a really big turning point for me when I started going to HCC. For those of you who don't know, HCC is Houston Community College. It's a local school here. It's been around for, I don't know how, for forever. And I was HD. I couldn't really figure it out. And so I'll never forget, I was actually borrowing your car. I was borrowing Ashley.
Really?
I was borrowing Ashley, and I drove to UHD. I had to finalize some paperwork because I was leaving UHD and coming to Houston Community College. And I remember vividly because it was hot, but you had to keep the heater on so the car wouldn't over.
Oh, man.
And so I ran into the school looking like, people were like, my shirt was off, and I was like, I need to get the financial aid office. I get to the financial aid office. I do whatever I need to, and I get to HEC. I love HEC because HEC helped me like figure it out. It just helped me like hone in. And I think the biggest thing I realized was I had a sociology professor who I loved. It was an awesome class. And I looked at her syllabus, and on the syllabus, it had her HEC email, but she also had like a St. Thomas email and a U of H email. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this woman is teaching at U of H and St. Thomas and here. So I'm getting the same education that people at U of H are getting and people at St. Thomas. And I'm only, and I didn't have financial aid when I was at H. I paid for everything out of pocket. Yeah. And I was like, dude, I work overnight at Walmart. I'm a stalker. I'm like, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. I can just pay for this awesome education. I love the teacher. I love the professor. So, you know, you were going to say something.
No, I think what you're saying is spot on. Is that because again, the game done changed. We used to think the best professor, the best degree, whatever, it's out there and it's unattainable. And the reality is, especially depending on where you live, right? We live in what's called a commuter city, right? So typically to go to college in like a city like Houston, you have a couple of options. You know, you have TSU, you have Prairie View, you have St. Thomas, you have Rice, you have U of H. And so because you have these different options that are available to you, you can pretty much drive to any one of those options. Well, guess what? There's only so many people with PhDs in history, in literature. So those same professors end up teaching at multiple campuses. Mm-hmm. And so now you have access to that high quality professor from Rice, from St. Thomas, from U of H, at a local school. So that's why I'm a fan of HEC. And I say this, I'm actually on the board of the foundation at HEC. We help raise money for scholarships for students. And so I'm not trying to tell you, hey, you have to go to HEC or anything like that. Just put that little disclaimer in there. But I understand how it works, right? Yeah. And so by understanding how it works, I can say, oh man, you're spot on. Usually people who are professors at the local university, they're actually practitioners too. So that means they're not just doing it for academic sense. That means they have some kind of background in it. And that's really helpful too, because that helps you into the workforce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, awesome. And so another thing I wanted to mention quickly or talk about quickly was looking at what I do now as a teacher. You look back in your life and you see things that kind of were hints that could have led you to believe that, okay, I could easily see teaching being my thing. I'll use myself as an example. I'm a teacher now. I have a degree in finance and I worked in accounting for about 5-6 years. I remember early on when I was a kid that my mom was working on certification to get like a childcare business started. She wanted to open up her own daycare type of thing. Mm-hmm. I remember that growing up. My dad was my Sunday school teacher as a kid growing up. My mom's dad started like one of the first like boys brigade clubs back in Nigeria. My dad substitute taught for a long time in A-Leaf and Spring Branch. And so, you know, I remember when I first got out of school, my dad was really heavy on, and you forgot one of those first, it's doctor, engineer, what is it, lawyer, and lawyer. Nurse.
And nurse.
Nurse. Yeah. Because my dad was trying really hard to get me to be a nurse. He was like, just go to school, it's 2 years. You'll be making $40 an hour in this. And I guess, you know, and the thing, it's really hard with like you said, with the authoritative. Is that what it was you said, the authoritative?
Authoritarian.
Oh, sorry, authoritarian. Thank you. The authoritarian parent, because you're trying to implement the same type of, you know, foundation that you had in a whole nother country. You're trying to bring it here. And, you know, we're just built a little different because we're born here. You know, we're not born, you know, back home like a lot of immigrants. So I know for me, I was the type of person where anytime someone was like, you need to do this, I'm literally not going to do what you say. Because I'm the type of person where I need to be told why. And I know my parents, God bless them, they hated me. I know they hated, because I would literally ask why like 8 times. You ain't gotta do this. Why? Because I said so. Why? If you ask why, it's just on and on and on. And so I think one of the key things, and I think this has a lot to do with parents. This is a really good note for parents. Know your child, know your kid, because some kids respond well to like, yo, this is what it needs to be. This is what you got to do. Some kids respond well to, hey, based off of what I've seen, and I had a conversation with my dad about this. I was like, if you would have told me to go into teaching because you have a caring, giving spirit, kind of look at what the people around, look at what I've done, look at what, our family has done. And we kind of have a history of doing that. It kind of goes back to history itself. If you look at a lot of Jewish and Arab, like I think they're like the jewelers, even all the way back from like the Byzantine Empire, right? Family after family, right? They kind of had like these jewel businesses and things like that, right? You have like Smiths. The name Smith literally is it's a job. Like it's a blacksmith. It's a type of job. So if you kind of look back at your family history, it'll kind of show you where you need to go. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's spot on. And there's a little bit more to it in that Western cultures typically try to forge individualism, whereas Eastern cultures try to focus more on the group dynamic. And so that's really important. Zach over here, he wanna teach too. He wanna be in the mentoring too. But so when you're dealing with African, Middle Eastern, Asian culture, those cultures focus on the good of the group. So the thing is, and why is that significant? Because when you're asking for individual why, we're thinking the Eastern culture is thinking in a group sense. What do you mean why? Why do you need as an individual to a why answer when this is good for the group? Gotcha. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So oftentimes the thought process never really goes down to the individual. So that's one component. The other component is that I'm a big firm believer in the why, but it's also skill sets, right? And now we're going to go off into some psychology, some neuropsychology. So there's a thing called epigenetics, and epigenetics is basically, if you look at your DNA, what kind of code is written in your DNA. And so basically when you do certain things, it's activated, your DNA is activated, right? So the dominant features start to come out. So when your family has a history of watchmaking, of something kind of different, whatever it is, it's almost encoded in your DNA. So it becomes such second nature to you. And oftentimes, and we'll break this down real quick, oftentimes we get avocation and vocation confused. And so avocation is what you do for money. Vocation is what you do for purpose, for meaning. And so oftentimes, because we're caught up in and you could say vocation is what you do for a living too, right? But so often we get caught up in that little flex of like what I do for money versus like who I am as a person and how do I spend my time there. So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So real quick, Festus, what are a couple things that students can do to figure out, let's say you're like a sophomore in high school, right? Sophomore and up, and you're still trying to figure out like, I'm not sure what it is, I want to do. What would you say, what are 2 or 3 things that like right now a student can do to just say like, all right, this is what I can do to help me figure out, like have a general idea of what a sense of purpose is for me, what is a possible career path I should look into.
So I'm glad you brought that up, especially since Christmas is right around the corner and then the end of the year is right around the corner. So I'm thinking maybe we could spend a couple sessions just talking about vision and creating vision. Because I think that's the number one thing, is starting out with a vision, and that can include creating a vision statement, right? And the vision determines where you go, right? Your vision determines where you go. And so the clearer you are in your vision, the easier it is that you're going to be able to find pathways. Because part of the problem sometimes, especially when you're younger, is you're pulled every different way. Oh, this looks cool. Oh, they're doing that. Oh, social media says this. And all of these things that are vying for your interest are pulling you in so many different directions, and it gets exhausting, right? Mentally, emotionally, right? Your self-esteem is going down because you weren't good at this thing that everybody else is doing. You know, you try to do this video that everybody else doing it, and it just gets exhausting. And so developing that vision and having that vision statement, which is basically kind of creating a way of saying, I see this in my future. This is how I see myself getting there, becomes really key. And for most kids, I would just start there, right? Is determining that vision and writing that vision statement out. And like I said, we can spend probably, you know, one of our mentoring sessions on that, just focusing on vision.
No, I think you brought up a really great point. I think we should really spend, because I like you said, that I think that's where it all lies. It all lies within that vision. You know, and it reminds me of last week when I kind of talked to, when we talked about that young man that I met that said we kind of need to go through that rough patch where we, you know, have to figure out where we get to, and we agree, absolutely. But what we don't want is, we don't want you to pull up like $20,000-$30,000 worth of debt, $50,000, $70,000 worth of debt while you're trying to figure that out. You got to have, and like you said, if you have that vision, it'll help you along that path so much easier. And when you talked about that, you kind of reminded me of Heston, who's a part of LY with the Compass program. I think he was talking about how he became a dentist, and when he said it was very like, this is it. Like, he saw it. He saw it, and he knew where he had to go, and he had to uproot the family and move to do it. But he's a dentist now, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Just getting that initial vision, and the Compass program, just some of the key components of it is vision, exploration, and then pursuit. Those three elements, right? Is let me kind of get it in my head what I want to do, and kind of get it to my site, and then let me try it out a little bit. Let me go to some conferences. Let me go volunteer. Let me go shadow. Let me try to get around the vision, right? Yeah. And then now I pursue it, right? I actually go after it. And so, and again, that fits in hand with LYS, which is being, knowing, doing, which is development, deployment, and going from there, right? Is actually developing those skill sets and then deploying yourself, kind of getting out there to go get it done. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place to stop. Unless there's anything you wanted to bring up.
No, I think this was a great session. Again, you covered a bunch of great topics today. And so just looking forward to the next one, being here Sunday, 2:00. Looking forward to the next one.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I can't wait to, I think we got some pretty cool ideas. I think next week's going to be pretty interactive, I think, as far as vision goes. And I think one thing we can hopefully do is, I'd love to get some folks in who have questions. I know we had some people that were going to join the call. So we're going to try and get some of the kids in and just have a talk about vision. Like, you know, what is vision to you? How do you come up with that for yourself? And you know what? You'd be very surprised. I'll say one thing before I go. You know, there are some young people out there who are taking advantage of, it's almost like a revolution that's happening right now with the access to information, with the upgrades that are happening with the access to information and how you're able to use it. I think about what we were like our junior year of high school. Like, my main concern was making sure I could get D-lunch and also go to the a la carte line to put chili cheese on my that was my main priority. Like, that was it. You got kids now that are like starting businesses, getting ready to do some NFTs out there. You know, it's really awesome to see them do that. But for those who may not know about those things, those who want to understand, what are the things that are within me? You know, we always say, you know, you are given everything that you need to fulfill your purpose is already inside of you. You've just got to figure it out. You've just got to find it. And, you know, we talked about it last week again. When I teach, I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm just, I'm just flowing in the daily mode of things. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I can't wait to go over that. That may be like a 2 or 3 week.
I feel you. I was thinking the same thing. Same thing is like, because even as an adult, like one thing I do is I usually spend the last week of the year just focusing my vision for what's going forward. I'm not a big 10-year plan person. I think I have an idea of where I want to be in 10 years, but at the same time, I'm a kind of person, I just live everything day to day type. But I do, how do I put it? I do understand my calling. I believe I understand my calling. I understand it pretty well. And so that gives me direction. And so I try to just sit down and reflect. What did I learn last year? What were the big takeaways? You had a whole year. What were the big lessons? And then, okay, this year coming up, how can I apply what I learned last year to this year? And then developing some of those SMART goals that kind of line up with, okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And especially in the different areas of my life. So I'll say this, so there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. And so thank you all for joining us. Olay, you got anything else? You want to close this out?
Folks, on Amazon, website, Laddering Your Success. You are looking at the author. It's not me. It's the other guy on the screen. All right. There's an ebook out there. There's a scholarship ebook. There's a parent's guide. Is a parent's guide out? Is it?
It's not. It's dropping soon. It's dropping soon. It'll be ready for the parents next year, 2022.
Wonderful. Folks, go out there. I can't express how not only how important it is, but how amazing it is. The resources that we have to help you. Just looking at the back, if you read the back of the book and you see everything that we're talking about here with LYS, you have an opportunity to have your college, to have not just college, technical training as well, right? Have this paid for. Folks, listen to me. I'm coming from a place of experience and wisdom. You don't want to be my age looking at a Sally Mae turn to Navian. I don't want that for you, okay? I want you to leave free. I want you to be able to use that extra money, go invest in stocks and crypto, go travel, help your family, all right? So that's what we're trying to do with LYS, trying to build start that path of generational wealth for students, for parents, for teachers, for everyone, all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And well, as Festus said, let's continue to grow as you start your climb with Laddering Your Success. Y'all have a great weekend. See you next week. We'll talk about vision.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.